All right, Tim, go ahead.
Hello, and welcome to Chapter Connect. I'm your host, Dr. Tim Radke, Vice President for Chapters at the Explorers Club. Today, we'll be presenting to you the Southern California chapter of the Explorers Club. The Southern California chapter is headed by co-chair David Dolan, who is a great friend and confidant of mine personally. I want to start out by introducing him with a brief video that was first shown at the 2018 annual dinner where he received the Sweeney Medal from the Explorers Club.
Raised in Santa Barbara, Explorers Club Sweeney medalist David Dolan grew up exploring the rugged backcountry of his hometown. His passion for exploration was fostered by his many backpack trips to the High Sierra with his brothers. When David was 17, he began his lifetime passion of combining exploration and humanitarian service. He journeyed to Latin American jungle villages to vaccinate children and perform emergency dentistry. It was then he adopted Dr. Albert Schweitzer's motto, "You will always find happiness if you seek and find how to serve." David studied anthropology at Westmont College and public health at UCLA. With this training, he assisted in the development of health clinics, water wells, orphanages, and other projects off the grid in Africa, Asia, and the Americas. While in Africa, he led others, including his brother Donald and son Daniel, in climbing Mount Kenya and Mount Kilimanjaro. These climbs were also fundraising campaigns. They brought in tens of thousands of dollars to fund public health projects. Explorers Club flag expeditions have been part of David's extended family, including a flag expedition to Namibia with his wife Nancy Nenow. His brothers Tom and Don went on a flag expedition to study tornado behavior. David organized many West Coast Explorers Club annual dinners, including one that featured James Cameron's report on his Challenger Deep expedition. Later, David joined the club's board of directors. David's service was temporarily curtailed when he was diagnosed with the same lung disease, IPF, that claimed the life of his older brother. The only cure for IPF is a lung transplant, and thankfully, on July 21st last year, he received a life-saving transplant. Now recovered from his surgery, David is ready to continue his passion of humanitarian service and exploration.
I just want to add to that in addition, can you hear me? Yeah, I just wanted to add to that in addition, in 2009, David received the Citation of Merit from the Explorers Club, and he's also the chairman of the Legacy Society Committee, on which I also serve. So he's put in an incredible amount of service to the club. David, welcome to Chapter Connect.
Well, thank you, Tim, and always good to see you. We're looking forward to getting together with you and everybody else when it's safe to go. But as a physician yourself, we'll take some lead from you as well. I just want to give greetings to everybody from Southern California, a place where I, as you saw in the video, spent many years exploring itself. And before I go any further, I'd like to give a special thanks to fellow Explorers Club member and longtime friend, Jim Hancock, who went with me climbing Kilimanjaro 20 years ago. And he created that video that you just saw. And thanks to David Dow, a retired CBS correspondent who provided the narration. The Southern California chapter consists of those who live within the areas of Orange County to the south, up through LA County, San Luis Obispo, Ventura, and Santa Barbara County, and to the east to San Bernardino County. We have about 160 plus members. And one of the nice things about being in the region is that we have some amazing cultural and educational institutions, including UCLA, USC, Caltech. We have JPL NASA. We have also the Griffith Park Observatory, which is directed by Ed Krupp, who is one of our members. And we have people in the entertainment industry. And as you saw in the video, James Cameron is usually here. He's now in New Zealand shooting Avatar sequels. But we have a really amazing, wide variety of members who represent everything from ocean exploration to land, mountaineering, air, and space. Of course, Chuck Yeager, one of our esteemed members, who just celebrated a birthday and celebrated the anniversary of his the sonic making sonic boom by breaking the sound barrier. He also is one of our members who lives in the region. So we've been very fortunate. And sometimes we have these very famous folks that show up, and then the rest of us just get a chance to really learn from them as they provide mentorship. We have had also some great folks volunteering in leadership. Charles Carmona has co-chaired the chapter with me. Alan Feldstein, who will hear later, has provided leadership. Alan Smith, and also Peter Keller. I'd like to give a special thanks to Dr. Peter Keller, the president of the Bowers Museum. He has been a particular supporter of our chapter, hosting many meetings in the Bowers Museum, the same venue that we've had 6 West Coast Explorers Club's annual dinners, and also we hosted a Lowell Thomas Awards dinner. And then that was 2014 and 2016. Alan Feldstein co-chaired the Lowell Thomas Awards Dinner in Santa Barbara, my hometown, with Kristen Larson. So we've had a great amount of participation. Now, right now, we're in this kind of nowhere land of Zoom meetings, but we look forward to field trips, meetings face-to-face and in person in the not too distant future. At this point, I'm operating as co-chair, but I'll be rotating off that position, and we'll be having elections and having some new leadership elected, and we'll look forward to the next decade of the Explorers Club in Southern California. This chapter was founded in 1966. And we've just have had some great experiences together. We're always having people coming and going, and you never know. It's always fun when I talk to our members to find out where they're coming back from, and where they're going. We've had lots of flag expeditions depart from Southern California as well. And so that's another part of it. Well, I could speak a lot about that, but I think we're really here to listen to our esteemed group of speakers and explorers that you will be listening to in just a moment. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Rosaly Lopes, who is a senior research scientist at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory that's associated with Caltech, that's here in Southern California. She's also the editor-in-chief of the planetary journal Icarus. I believe that was once edited by a very famous astronomer. You could tell us more about that, Rosaly. But she's had an amazing career on this planet and beyond. And what is it that saying the Buzz Lightyear said to eternity and beyond, or something like that? Well, Rosaly is a volcanologist on this planet, but also she explores volcanoes on other planets and moons. And she will be telling about that as well. She is a Lowell Thomas awardee and has received an amazing amount of awards and recognition, including mention in the Guinness Book of World Records. So I would like to just hand the time over to Rosaly. Rosaly is a very dear friend of ours, and we're always happy to see you, and we look forward to seeing you in person again. Dr. Lopes.
Thank you so much, Dave. I do look forward so much to seeing everyone again. So I'm going to give you a very brief presentation about some of the, just a little bit of the volcanoes I have been to. In fact, I have been to active volcanoes on every continent, including Antarctica, that has the Erebus volcano that is active. And here is a photo taken in Vanuatu. The name of the island is called Tana. Vanuatu is a great place because it's a very volcanic archipelago, and two of the islands have spectacular volcanoes. This is one of them. I really study planetary volcanoes, and today I'm just going to show you one planetary body, Jupiter's moon Io, that looks like a pizza. And that is the most volcanically active body in the solar system. The colors that you see are all colors of sulfur. If you've been to a volcanic location, volcanoes have lots of sulfur. And all the dark areas you see, like the olives on the pizza, they are active volcanoes, active lava flows. So I studied Io with an instrument on the Galileo spacecraft. That's a mission that went to Jupiter and studied Jupiter and its moons. And I studied Io in the infrared. So the photo on the right, that image is in the infrared, and all the really bright places like the yellows and whites and the reds, those are hot regions where there are active volcanoes. And this is at the, just at the wavelength of about 4 microns. So infrared detects heat from the volcanoes. And it was analyzing these images that I ended up discovering 71 volcanoes on Io that no one knew were active. And eventually I ended up in the Guinness Book of World Records, which is something that never in my life I imagined I would end up as the discoverer of the most active volcanoes anywhere. Here is one of the volcanoes on Io, the picture at the top. That's a volcano called Loki. It's actually a volcanic caldera. And an artist, space artist friend of mine called Michael Caro did this painting advised by me of what the interior of this caldera looked like from what we knew from the data. And Loki is a lava lake. In fact, we have many volcanoes on Io that are lava lakes. And lava lakes are rare enough, but they're actually common on Io. And so I'll just highlight here one, that this is the lava lake called Ita Ali in Ethiopia. I went to it with some colleagues and even another member of the Explorers Club several years ago, and is absolutely spectacular. Is also in a very, very remote location and pretty dangerous to travel in. The volcano is not so dangerous. The local people are more dangerous. And what we're doing is taking infrared measurements of the lava lake. This is the scale is in Celsius, because we have this infrared data from the spacecraft. So we want to compare the distribution of heat in the volcanoes. And I'm just going to show you a very quick video of this. We are standing on the edge of this lava lake. And one of the things that is spectacular is that you can stand right on the edge of it until the heat gets too much. This was taken by a colleague of mine called Cheney Radable. Anyway, really amazing being there. I also study another type of volcano, but those are ice volcanoes. And this is actually a digital elevation model from Titan, a moon of Saturn. It's, it just shows you that there is a very high peak and a very deep pit. The colors are artificial, of course, they just show different compositions. And this is what we call a cryovolcano, because the magma is water that is under a nice crust, is not molten rock like on Earth. So with that, I am going to I'm going to stop sharing and pass on to the next person. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rosaly. And by the way, Rosaly's written a book on traveling to visit volcanoes, which I actually picked up a copy before I went to visit the volcano in the Big Island of Hawaii. So if you're going to volcano regions, do look up her book. Now, I think our next speaker is Steve Elkins, who's a fellow of the Explorers Club. You know, when you think of many of our members, a lot of them get the moniker Indiana Jones. I mean, but there's so many of our members who could do that role better than Harrison Ford. And one of those is Steve Elkins. Steve has worked in television. He's an Emmy award-winning photographer, editor, and producer. And in 1994, he became very interested in the Honduras Mosquita region and the Lost City legends. So after a number of ground expeditions, he ended up employing LIDAR, airborne. I'll let him tell you more about that. Devices that to help better explore the archaeological record. His expeditions have resulted in many articles and a particular book, The Lost City of the Monkey God, which is published in 16 languages. Not only that, Nancy and I were on a road trip, and we picked up the CD version at a truck stop, of all places. Anyway, it's a great book. I recommend it. And he's become a very dear friend, and he can spin a yarn better than most. So Steve Elkins, tell us about your expeditions and explorations.
Well, thanks for listening, everybody. I know for some of you, this might be a bit redundant, but stuff goes on even with COVID. I thought the best way to explain what I've been involved in is I have a 1 minute, 53-second trailer from a documentary that we made. I know some of you have seen it, but we're actually modifying it because we're very close to having a new version of this movie that will be streaming to your house pretty soon. If all goes well, fingers are crossed, with many new things in it. So I'm going to play this clip for you. All right.
Who's afraid of the curse of the lost city?
The mythical White City, where an ancient civilization once thrived.
It seems to have inspired everybody to try and find out, does it exist or does it not?
We're headed through very dangerous areas controlled by drug cartels.
We're just getting over a coup in this country.
We are under the spotlight. Who are these guys? What are they here for?
Ciudad Blanca is a place of great riches and treasure. We would have been marked as treasure hunters coming to steal Honduras' cultural patrimony. Legends are part of the Honduran national psyche.
You just mentioned a name, Ciudad Blanca. You can see the fear go across their faces.
We've got a technology that makes it possible to see what's in a large area.
We're shooting laser pulses out of the bottom of the plane. If something is there, we'll see it. Those are absolutely, without question, archaeological ruins. It's a site.
This is what we're looking for.
When you fly over this valley, you look down, it looks like a tropical paradise. But when you're actually in it, you realize that this is a really unfriendly environment. You know, we are not welcome there.
Whoever goes in, they cannot make it out alive. So maybe that's why it's been so secretly safe.
Some people's bug bites didn't go away.
The parasite's killing everything.
It's absolutely terrifying.
Something told me that there's more to the story than meets the eye.
Wow, wow, wow. Look at this.
Well, there you go. That kind of sums it up very quickly. It's a very complicated, long story. I'm happy to answer questions later, or people can contact me privately. but I don't want to take too much time with that. One of the things with this expedition, and I feel very strongly about it, the new way of exploration, we're in a new way of living, a new way of doing things, of which technology plays a very large part. And I like this particular cartoon I found in the New Yorker, which hopefully will come up here. There it is. Keep your eyes peeled for a place to charge our phones, men. That really sums up the expeditions I recently did to find the lost city. We had to travel sometimes like we did 100 years ago, but we had all our electronic doodads and had a lot of problems with them in the jungle, but they really made everything possible. Well, our discovery has created quite an impression in Honduras and actually all over the world. As Dave said, the book about it is in 16 languages. It's been on most media around the world. But one of the things I'm really proud of that we were able to do is start this foundation called Kahakamasa, which is the indigenous word that the people use to describe the place that we found. And not only did we make a great archaeological discovery, we also discovered that the rainforest there was pretty much untouched and one of the few places left that has an enormous amount of biodiversity. In fact, species that were unknown to science and species they thought were extinct. So we set up this foundation in cooperation with the Honduran government and several global NGOs to try and preserve this place and study more. This has been going on for the last 5 years, been going pretty well until COVID came in. And now it's not much is happening, but we're slowly starting to get there, back up again. One of my proudest moments is last year, the Honduran government put on some road shows for school kids around the country. And I was down there for one of them, and I saw this little boy looking at a replica of one of the artifacts we found. And I loved the look in his eye. This is a future explorer. You just wonder what's going on in his head as he's looking at that. Fascinated. The people there just love it, and the kids are absolutely thrilled with it. So I'm happy that it does inspire people. Another thing that happened at the beginning of this year, and unfortunately it's kind of ironic, our book came out in mainland China. This is a cover, right at the beginning of the year, just when COVID came out. I think the book is done fairly well, but it's kind of hard to know. And it's ironic that it was in China of all places too. Now, since COVID, this is what I've been doing, like many of us. This is a lot that I bought next to my house in Pasadena. There was a wreck, and I'm slowly refurbishing it. And this is what I look like most days out there, cleaning out old bricks, putting in new plants, so on and so forth. However, once an explorer, always explore. And even though we can't go to exotic places and do many of the things we'd like to be doing, I, as well as other people who are explorers in the area, we're going out looking at other areas in our local counties that we didn't even know about, even though we've lived here for many, many decades. Like yesterday, I went out in Ventura County and just followed some dirt roads wherever they went and found some fascinating things that I had never known about. So there's always a chance to explore, no matter where you are. Lastly, I want to say that at the beginning of this year, we had 2 expeditions lined up, another LIDAR expedition in April, which obviously got killed because of COVID, and another ground expedition. And I signed on with a production company in Burbank to do a program about climate change, about melting permafrost. And I was supposed to be spending the summer in Siberia, but instead I'm spending it in Pasadena, which is not so bad. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Kevin and on to the next person. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. That's great. I look forward to seeing you again and following the next project. And I know that it will be just as exciting as your last one. Now I'd like to segue to Alan Feldstein, who's been a member since 2009, but he's an explorer way before that. Now he professionally, he trained and became an attorney, very successful entertainment, marketing, and advertising attorney. But then he made the mistake of going to Africa and catching the bug of really going off the beaten path. In 2000, that trip changed his life. Later, he climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and And then he's tracked chimps in Tanzania. He has gone kayaking off Tanzania, the first one to do so. So Alan has had quite a world experience in the world in leadership in exploration. He owns his own safari company, Infinite Safari Adventures, but he also volunteers his time. He's been the former chapter chair of the Southern California chapter, but also he's been co-chair of Lowell Thomas Awards here in Southern California for the West Coast Explorers Dinner. And he's also has had a very prominent role with the Cheetah Conservation Fund on their board of directors. In fact, Alan just received an award on its 30th anniversary for his leadership in that organization. He's done work with helping young people develop interest and passion for bird watching. Well, the list goes on and on. But what I like to say more than anything else, Alan is not only just a dear friend, he's been a confidant of mine. He's been somebody I've gone to seek advice and insights, and he's always been right. So, Alan, I appreciate what insights you've given me, and so maybe you can share it with the rest of the world right now.
Thanks, David. It's great to see at least everybody virtually. Let me quickly get this screen up and running. When David first contacted me about doing this and said, want you to report about your efforts in the field, I said, I haven't been in the field in a while. So I was trying to figure out what I could talk about. And so I thought I would briefly talk about two things. As many of you know, as my children say, Dad, just because you can talk about Africa doesn't mean you have to talk about Africa. But I do love it very much, and I do a lot of giving back there. And so the last time I was in the field was out with this group of gentlemen, Patrick Papatiti, who I paid for his college education in Kenya, now runs an anti-poaching operation near Amboseli National Park. And I went on patrol with these rangers a night. Fortunately, we didn't stumble across any poachers, but it's a tremendous problem, especially now with the lack of tourism, not so much poaching for elephant tusk or rhino horn, but for bushmeat, because people don't have money, they can't afford to eat, so they're going out and poaching wildlife. And just as an interesting sidelight, if you look at the gentleman, the second one from the left, you look at the gentleman on my right here, that is the same person I had met 10 years earlier. His name is Jumping James. But these are really dedicated people who do a great job out there. There's also another interesting group of women out there called the Lionesses. And let me tell you, you do not want to tangle with them. And they're outstanding in their job in anti-poaching because they can get the women of the villages to talk where the men can't. And that's where a lot of the intel goes. So that was my last time in Kenya, just before the pandemic hit. And as I talk to my people in Africa all the time, I am very much itching to get back. But no moss grows under these feet. So I was looking for things to do while we were locked down. And one of the things that I was fortunate to come up with was one of my safari clients wanted to do something, and he bought a 40-foot shipping container here in the Long Beach, San Pedro area. And CCF and us went out to get donations and grants to fill it. And we were very concerned over, this was a 2.5-year project, that we wouldn't get enough stuff to put in the container. Well, little did we know, we got so much stuff that we're now shipping our second container there. But one of the things that I learned in doing this was how to pack a shipping container, which I thought I would show you. So Dr. Lori Marker, who is the executive director of the Cheetah Conservation Fund, who I consider the next Jane Goodall, called me one day and said, Alan, would you mind if I sent a few boxes to put in the container? This is about half of what I received at my house and went into the container. But we also got animal crates, operating tables, and other things donated to put in the container. And CCF was able to buy what is called a skid steer, which we loaded in the container. And this is a video that I'll give a little narration of. So this is the skid steer that we came up with. We're now shipping a second one over there. You see it's on treads, and we bought another set of tractor tires. But one of the things I'm most excited about is I'm a big believer in sending tourists to the Cheetah Conservation Fund. And we now have 3, actually 5 now, eco-friendly golf carts that we are able to use over there because they're electric to send and ferry clients around on the Cheetah Conservation property. But it was so crowded, we had so much stuff that we literally built a platform inside the container to put the golf carts on top of. And if you'll notice, there is about a ½ inch clearance between the 2 tires on the golf carts and on the walls of the thing. And the forklift drivers that we worked with, I called ballerinas, because they were able to drive that golf cart right in and put it up there on the shipping, in the shipping container. This shipping container left 8 days ago and is due in Namibia on November 27th. This is a final look of the container, full to the brim. So this is a cement mixer. We have a mower. We have a fence hole staker machine. We have the skid steer, 3 golf carts, truck tires, tracks for that, medicines, and all sorts of things that went into this container. We literally filled it to the brim. And next week, we're putting in 3 more golf carts, another skid steer, and a spiral staircase for one of their buildings at CCF. So it's a operation that I'm very proud of and very thankful finally that we got to complete. So with that, I will say thank you very much and look forward to any questions that anybody else has.
Thank you, Alan. That's terrific. And having personally gone to the Cheetah Conservation Fund's international headquarters in Namibia, I can absolutely recommend you going. You may have seen that photograph of Nancy, Nina, and me, along with Tama and Alina Levy, along with Lori Marker in that video. I certainly recommend anybody to go once it's okay to travel again. And I believe, Tim, you may be planning to go soon, and give Alan a call. He can give you good counsel on how to get there in a very efficient manner. Our next speaker is Danielle.
But David, if anybody needs any help in packing a shipping container, you can also call me too now.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Our next speaker is Danielle Eubanks, Danielle Eubank is an artist, a graduate of a great school, UCLA, go Bruins. But I got to know her when Nancy and I hosted her in our home when she spoke at the San Diego chapter of the Explorers Club. And unlike most people who bring slides, she actually brought her paintings in her car and demonstrated that. I believe even the painting that's over your shoulder, Danielle. In any event, Danielle's traveled the world, but not. She did not get frequent flyer miles. She has sailed in ancient replicas of ancient ships. And I'll let her tell you more about it, but what she's done is pretty remarkable. This is real sailing. And she's painted the 7 seas, and it's part of a 20-year project of learning about what the sea has to teach us through the visual arts. All of you have carried a photograph of hers in your pocket, but I'll let her tell you more about that as she speaks. But Danielle, I'm so glad you could join us, and we look forward to when places to exhibit are open again, that we might be able to visit one of your openings and enjoy seeing your work with our own eyes. You need to unmute yourself, Danielle. Danielle, are you able to unmute?
It looks like she's unmuted, but it's frozen up for some
Okay.
reason. Yeah.
I think what we might do is go straight to Kevin Lee. Okay. I'm going to switch. Go to Plan B, and we're going to go with Kevin Lee at this point, and then we'll come back to Danielle. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, are you on, Danielle?
Yes, I'm back.
Okay, well, let's go. Go ahead, Danielle, please.
Let's try again, shall we?
Yes. Take two. Go ahead.
Take two. All right. I am so happy to be here. I don't know how much of what I said until I was cut off. But so what I've got for you today is, as David so rightly said, I am a painter. I'm an expedition artist. I have sailed and painted every ocean on the planet. It's taken me 20 years to make that happen. This is a photograph. I take the odd photograph. Hopefully you guys have one, as David said, in your wallet. But this is a photograph of one of the expeditions I was expedition artist for. This is a Phoenician vessel. So this is a replica 6th century BCE vessel in which we circumnavigated Africa, because Herodotus said that the Phoenicians were the first people to go clockwise around Africa. And this was led by Philip Beale. Then this is a replica Indonesian vessel. So this is much later. This is the 8th century. It looks older to me. It looks less boaty, right? But it's a lot later, 8th century, Common Era. This is an Indonesian boat as found on stone relief carvings in Indonesia at the Borobudur Temple. So if you've ever climbed the Borobudur Temple, and I'm sure a lot of you have, in the middle stages, there are these 4 stone relief carvings of this wackadoodle looking vessel. So this one we sailed across the Indian Ocean from Indonesia to Africa around the Cape of Good Hope, and then up the west coast of Africa to Ghana, because there are a lot of cultural traits shared between the west coast of Africa and Indonesia, and nobody knows how that happened. It could have happened through a ship like this. Another expedition I was on was more of an artist expedition. It just so happens to have a walrus in it, but this is the boat that I was on. So this is the photo that you probably have had. It was last year's Explorers Club membership card. So that was me. It was a very snowy day. And then what I do on these expeditions is I make paintings. As I mentioned at the outset, I have 2 exhibitions on. I don't know how much of that you heard. They are of photographs and paintings. This is a painting, my interpretation of the Arctic Ocean. So one of the exhibitions is photographs, and that's in Chatsworth, California. And then the other one is a much larger exhibition, which is in Palo Alto, California. So if you're in North or South California, I've got you covered. And then this is Mozambique. So this is from the Phoenicia ship expedition. Some of it's conscious, some of it's subconscious, but I take a lot of the colors from the culture in which I am, and it just kind of shows up in the paintings of water. Almost all of my work are paintings of water. And then finally, Antarctica. This color palette should look pretty familiar to all of you that have been to Antarctica. There are a lot of purples and teals and turquoises. So when I'm capturing these oceans, the Southern Ocean, I am really thinking about the mood of the water as well as its portrait. And at that point, I will stop my share. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Danielle. I appreciate that. And I love that painting that's over your shoulder. Is there a name for that painting?
Yeah, that is Arctic 5. This one is Arctic 5, and this is from the Phoenician ship expedition.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to our next speaker, Kevin Lee. Kevin is one of the most multi-talented persons I've met. He's a photographer, he's an author, lecturer, business person. He has scuba dived all 7 continents. You know, anybody can climb all the 7 summits, but he scuba dived the 7 continents. And that includes the polar waters of Antarctica and also the Arctic. He has backpacked, took a trip, and it lasted a little longer than maybe he expected. 3 years to 40 countries. That included 14 months in India. He had a chance to meet both Mother Teresa and Dalai Lama, 2 Nobel Prize winners. And he's soloed twice to the Everest Space Camp. He's climbed such mountains as Kilimanjaro, Mount Kenya, and also he's done a lot of local peaks here in Southern California. He has a black belt in Taekwondo, and nobody messes with Kevin, I can tell you that. He's even an amateur radio operator. But the one thing that I think the nice thing I like about Kevin is, you know, every time I need some help with something, he says, yeah, what can I do? And it's done in half the time that he promised. I mean, he just gets things done. And I really appreciate it, and doesn't expect any thanks. He just gets it done. And that's just great. Let me also tell you, I was in, I guess, the Vaughn's grocery store a couple of years ago, in 2018. And I'm going to hold this up. I don't know if you can see that. Oh, it's backwards. In any event, it is the cover of Outdoor Photographer magazine. And I saw that, and then I looked carefully, and there's Kevin Lee's name. He had the cover photograph of this great outdoor photography magazine. And of course, I bought a copy. And one of these days, I get you to sign it, Kevin. So the guy gets around. So Kevin, tell us a bit about your interest in exploration.
Yes, well, thank you for that introduction, Dave. I do want to say that cover photo was not mine, but a friend of mine. But the article inside was one that I contributed to. Thanks for showing that. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here and with among so many people of the Explorers Club. I really love the club because I'm able to meet so many diverse and interesting people who've accomplished quite a bit. Just the fact that the people who have already presented has shown that. So I am generally known for scuba diving and underwater photography, though, as Dave mentioned, I have traveled extensively around the world. My pursuits in scuba diving are more with a scientific bent. I help scientists collect and photograph in situ small animals called heterobranchs. The more common name before was nudibranchs, but that has changed. And yes, these animals, you know, you have the animal kingdom. You have the mollusks and gastropods, and then the heterobranchs, and you can think of them as sea slugs. And you see over my shoulder there are an example of a pair of Hypsilodoris that are mating, and that photo was taken in Malaysia. Now, the sea slugs are hermaphroditic, meaning that they contain both male and female reproductive organs in one animal. And so they always line up right side to right side because that's where the reproductive organs are. So you can see right side to right side. That's how they mate. The photo over here was taken locally, a place called Laguna Beach, Shaw's Cove. And this nudibranch, Ocenia rosacea, has finger-like projections on its back, on its dorsum. And those are filled with stinging nematocysts. The animal ingests bryozoa and incorporates the stinging cells inside its serrata. And any fish or predator that comes along and takes a chomp gets a mouthful of stinging cells, and that's its protective measure. Now, on the other side over here is another Hypsilodorus festiva taken off Jeju Island, a province in South Korea, island province. Similarly, it consumes stinging cells and poisons and incorporates them into glands in its mantle, on the mantle edge. And likewise, if it's disturbed, it will exude the poisons out, and a predator will get a mouthful of nasty stuff. So yes, my diving in search of these animals has taken me all around the world. With proper permitting, I do help collect some specimens. I've worked with scientists at the Los Angeles County Museum of Natural History. And we know that there are about 3,000 known heterobranchs or sea slugs, and probably there's far more in the world, particularly at depths which we can't go to regularly. We'll have to enlist Victor Vescovo one of these days to go search for him down in the Marianas Trench. Yeah, I think my time is going to be up soon. So I will just say that it was a surprise and an honor a couple of years ago for some scientists to actually name a sea slug after me. And Kevin Murphy, if you could throw that image up, let people see that. That is Placida kevinlei, as taken off the coast of Kenya. I did not even know that this was an unknown species, because there's others that look similar. So I just took a cursory photo. Lo and behold, the scientists looked at it and said, well, that's a new species, and named it after yours truly. So thanks for listening, and I'll turn it back over to Dave.
Oh, thank you, Kevin. That's great. You know, one thing you have in common with the Dalai Lama is he too has a newly discovered creature named after him as well. So you're in good company. And I do stand corrected. With the Outdoor Photography magazine, your name was on the cover, and your photographs were within. But that's also a great honor to be in that publication that I've read religiously for years and years. Our next speaker is Dr. Maria Baltazzi, who is a longtime friend and has had a very varied life like the rest of us, both interesting careers in production, filmmaking, as well as exploration, and also journeys inward and journeys outward. Maria has both a PhD and a master's in fine arts, and the latter is in film, but she has done a number of major productions, including History's Expedition Africa, Stanley and Livingston, and also did a show with Animal Planet on, it's called Battleground Rhino Wars. She's had multiple Emmy nominations and multiple awards from other prestigious organizations. She has been also has credentials in the Producers Guild and other societies in filmmaking. One of the things I look forward to my inbox every few weeks is a newsletter that Maria publishes called 8 Good Things. It's a newsletter in which she curates inner and outer journeys for the greater good. So I commend that newsletter to you. Send her a note. You know, it's nice to get inspiration in your email inbox instead of all the junk we get all the time. So Maria, tell us a bit about what you've been up to.
Well, thanks for the plug there, David. And thank you, Tim and Ann, for having me be part of today's presentation. So one of the things that I do as an Explorer Club member is distance walking or hiking. And most days I log some miles. And from the time I started keeping track a few years back, I have logged over 4,500 miles. And almost 210 of those miles were done walking marathons on every continent. And all of them have been for charity and primarily in support of cancer research and awareness. My global journey, my global walking journey began in 2009 when I had the opportunity to fundraise for Livestrong in the New York Marathon. I had recently returned from doing a trek to Everest Base Camp and felt that if I could do that, I could probably walk across 5 boroughs in New York City. Even though I had never trained for a marathon, much less had done one. Though I wanted to do the marathon because my mother was a recent cancer survivor, and I wanted to do the marathon for others close to me that had been impacted by this disease. And it was such a gratifying experience that I did another and another until I made my way around the world. It was my version of doing the 7 summits. 2015 was my 7th continent in Antarctica. And when I crossed the finish line, I decided to plant the seeds of a philanthropic well-being travel company called Sojourn Explorers. And this is where I combine my international experience as a television producer and marathon walker and my years spent studying the art and science of happiness and mindfulness. And every trip that I curate has a well-being and give back component to it. And I had stepped away from doing marathons to begin my company and do some other projects. And just as I was getting ready to once again train for a marathon, COVID-19 hit. So instead of training to do an international marathon, I decided to use the foothills in my backyard here in Los Angeles. And I pledged to walk 1,000 miles for Stand Up to Cancer in support of patients and caregivers who have COVID-19. And since mid-May, I have walked about 840 miles, so I'm getting close to finishing. When I walk, I often think of Dr. Bertrand Piccard's comment at our last in-person ECAD, which was echoed again in this summer's Explorer's Log article about isolation. He believes that the next frontier to explore is consciousness, our inner world. And as explorers, and certainly as a distance walker, you spend a lot of time with your thoughts. And so while we may not be able to move through the world as freely as before, I think this is a great opportunity to consider Dr. Piccard's idea about the next frontier for exploration and turn inward even more. And I will end with the first line from Dr. Piccard's article, which is, when we can explore isolation on our own device, on purpose, it's an adventure. I wholeheartedly agree and feel that we can take on this adventure, whether we are out in the world exploring or in our backyard at home. It is this inward journey that eventually connects us all. So thank you again. It is truly an honor to be counted among this club's members. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Looking forward to hearing of your continued journey, and thank you for what you're doing to help others as well. I think that's one nice thing about so many members of the Explorers Club is the altruistic and humanitarian. And yes, we went to do exploring, but like many who have shared today and others that we know, we also do what we can for humanity. The next person is going to be sharing an absentia. Jess Phoenix happens to be in Turkey right now. So the time zone did not quite work out, not to mention technology. It just, I don't think we could quite pull it off with sat phones and so forth. She's there in Turkey finishing up a 7.5-week project across 5 countries, and there'll be more shared about that later. But I reached out to her and she agreed to do a video report, very brief video report. But let me say a little bit more about her before we see that. Jess is the executive director and co-founder of a environmental scientific organization called Blueprint Earth. And this is an organization that has a special outreach also to young people. I've noticed as I followed her career. She's, since 2008, she's been a volcanologist, extreme explorer, and professional field scientist. And she works with many universities and research institutions. She's to study lava flows and natural hazards and perform climate change research on glaciers. She's been featured on the Discovery and Science channels and many websites and other publications. Speaking of publications, her memoirs are forthcoming, going to be published this spring. The title is interesting enough, Ms. Adventure, My Wild Explorations in Science, Lava, and Life. And it's being published in March by Workman Press, and it's available for pre-sales. I just ordered my copy. I'm trying to write my own memoirs, and I think maybe if I could read hers, I might get inspired to follow suit. But in one of the blurbs for the book, I thought it was kind of interesting. It follows Jess Phoenix's journal from jungles to glaciers, university classrooms to television studios, and even to the side of the world's largest volcano, where she fixes a tire with a ballpoint pen, bubble gum, and duct tape. So we got a woman MacGyver in our midst. She probably needs to have a Swiss Army knife to complete the package. So in any case, let's hear from Jess right now, and then we'll go to some Q&A after her presentation.
I am literally just hanging out above the third largest sinkhole on planet Earth. You can see how tall it is up there, and you can see down into the water from the top up there all the way to the bottom, 1,700 feet. So that is about 300 feet taller than the Empire State Building. I don't want to go in the water, but I really do like this view on rappel. Pretty great. Anyway, bye. This is the top of Monte Castello, which is where the Sicani people lived. And there's habitation possibly back as far as 5000 BC. And it was inhabited up through the Middle Ages. The whole place is littered with pottery. And this is the cool mountainous interior of Sicily. And look at how defensible this is. This was some sort of structure. But when you come up to the edge, I mean, you could see people coming for literal miles away. I mean, it's everything. And there's a modern city. How cool is that? Right behind me is Mount Etna. That's an ash plume that's coming out of the crater. And there's so much lava. Look at all the lava. This is the largest and most active volcano in Europe, and I have been waiting my entire career to come here. This is incredible. And what's coming out of there, of the summit bit that you're seeing, that is volcanic ash, which is pulverized rock fragments. They can collapse roofs and bury crops, and they are extremely, ashfall is extremely devastating to local populations, and it's really hazardous for air travel. So it's really pretty to see, not so fun when you actually have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis.
Well, thank you, Jess. And I know you will see this probably tomorrow because of the time difference. And I appreciate you making the extra efforts to get us the videos. And a special thanks to Carlos Phoenix to help facilitating that, as well as Jim Hancock, who spliced the videos together. At this point, before we go to some Q&A, I would like to just let everybody know that we do expect to have another West Coast Explorers Club annual dinner. We expect it to be at the Bowers Museum sometime in the next year. The last one we had was over a year ago, and we gave the Rolf White Memorial Award to recognize ocean conservation to Jean-Michel Cousteau. And we also created a new award in honor and memory of Alan Rabinowitz for wildlife conservation, which we present to Joe Rohde. So I hope you all can join us. It's kind of like ECAD, but a little bit more casual and frankly less expensive because, well, it's not New York. And we also have lots of activities around the whole thing. So hope you can join us. And with that, Anne, why don't you and Tim lead us in our Q&A.
Yeah, great. Thank you, everyone, for your great presentations. I especially want to thank you for keeping it within the time constraints, because that now leaves us with a nice chunk of time where we can entertain questions from the audience. I did want to start out, oh, and also I wanted to mention the WeCat thing. David, this is the first time I've heard about this. I'm really excited about it. I've been to a couple of them, and they're fantastic events. It's actually where I met Alan, and I'm looking forward to getting to the next one. My first question I have is for Rosaly. Rosaly, you and I met several years ago in San Diego, if you recall. You gave a lecture, and I had just returned from Sakurajima, from Japan, where I was on the volcano while it was erupting. And so you had talked about the different types of volcanoes, ranging from like not such a big deal to like Mount St. Helens, where they explode. And I asked you which was the kind that I was on, and you said it was the bad one.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, with the extraterrestrial volcanoes, like the ones on Io, can you classify those by looking at them from the satellite?
Yes, absolutely. We have a lot of data. We have, thermal data. We have the morphology, that is what the feature looks like. For example, the explosive volcanoes tend to form very conical shapes. And in fact, you don't find those on other planetary surfaces so much. A little bit on the moon, and you find them on Mars. But there are a lot of different data we can get. Some spacecraft have what we call thermal inertia. It can actually see how much heat a surface is retaining. I mean, not an active lava, but whether that's ash or whether it's actually more solid. And yes, you are in Sakurajima. That it's an explosive volcano, but usually it's not too bad. It has fairly small explosions. And it's interesting that Jess was talking about Mount Etna. Well, that was my first volcano. I actually went there many times as a graduate student.
You never forget your first volcano, huh?
No, you don't. It's like your first love.
Well, thank you. Alan, first of all, I wanted to say, Alan, I want to thank you for all the wonderful work you do with the Cheetah Conservation Fund. My wife, Judy, and I had the opportunity to visit there last year and see all the great work that they're doing. When Lori was at her home for dinner, I think it was last year, she had mentioned to us this problem that was going on in Iran, where they had a bunch of people working for the foundation, I think about 10 people that were arrested as spies in Iran. And I know a couple of them have been convicted. I think one person got 10 years, but I haven't heard anything more. Do you have any update on that?
I don't have any update on the status of those people. I do know that during the 30th Gallup virtual presentation that we had a few days ago, Lori was fairly upbeat about what Iran is doing about potentially repopulating the cheetah population in Iran. So I'm hoping that that is an indication of good signs for what happened to those people. Our main focus at CCF right now has been not only in Namibia, but in Somaliland, which is the interdiction point and shipping point for cheetah cubs to the Middle East. And that is, we're now opening a new front in Somaliland, basically. We have land there, and we have, I think, 24 cheetah cubs that, once again, because of their age when they were seized, will never be put back into the wild again. But we look like we got some land, and we're going to be able to do something similar with that. And I apologize for the sunshine, but I guess we're glad we have it.
Yeah. Thank you. Steve, one question I have for you about LiDAR. I'm not real familiar with it. I know a little bit about it. I know it's been a great tool for archaeology on land. Does LiDAR have any application for doing any underwater archaeology?
It does have some. Its range is very limited. It doesn't work very well in turbid water, so the waters have to be pretty clear. But there has been some advances made in the technology just in the years that I've been aware of it, where they've gone from maybe being able to see 20, 30 feet to 60 feet to 100 feet. So there is some promise. It's not the best for underwater use at this point.
Yeah. Okay, Anne, at this point, I think we should try to open it up to questions from the audience. Do you have any?
I do. I just wanted to say thank you to Dave to start off with. One of the nicest guys around for putting together such an incredible panel of people this evening or this afternoon over there. And I had to second Maria as far as quoting Bertrand, because what you've done today is had us all explore our Explorers Club members. And even though we're stuck at home right now, this really does give us the inspiration and the impetus to want to keep doing things and move on. But this is incredibly special to hear from all of you. So thank you. I just also wanted to mention that while we were talking about Lori Marker did get the Explorers Club Award this year. So you're hearing a lot about her, but she is quite an incredible person, and she's done so much for the cheetahs. And I just wanted to also ask Alan if there's anything that anyone can send in. Would you mention a few items, or if, for our audience, if they maybe can do something to help out, because I think a lot of people want to do something here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we're going to probably try and do this again. We did send out a list, a sort of a wish list of veterinarian equipment, and the response was actually quite great. We shipped over 2 operating tables, an ultrasound machine, a digital X-ray machine for cheetah teeth, which was quite amazing, a number of different crates and containers for them and the goats and stuff. But what I will do, Anne, is send you that wish list, and if anybody wants it, perhaps you could send it out. We
could put it up online. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
may I also add, interesting enough, today there's the release of a new book called Remembering Cheetahs, and it is a effort of the top wildlife photographers of the world who photograph cheetahs in a variety of settings and so forth. And it's just been launched today. So be on the lookout for that book. And of course, Lori Marker has her book, The Future for Cheetahs, which is illustrated by the wonderful photographs of Susie Esterhaus. As a book collector myself, I have to mention books.
No, thank you for doing that.
And Anne, if I can add one more quick thing.
Sure.
If anybody happens to be going to Namibia, we definitely always need people to bring stuff over there, particularly like medicines and things like that. So if anybody is listening that has a trip planned to Namibia,
give us a heads up.
Please let me know. Yes.
Okay, so our first question tonight is from Jenny Wakwicki. She has 2. And Maria, the first one: how do we translate the act of sustained walking to a descent into our consciousness? What kind of nutrition advice do you have for elderly hikers to maintain energy levels? Thanks.
Well, stay hydrated. That's a big one. And in terms of nutrition, I highly recommend that you stay close to the source. You're not eating things that are processed. You're getting in your fruits and your vegetables and legumes. It's all the stuff that your mom told you when you were growing up to eat. So, the recommendation is that you eat all the colors of fruits and vegetables to make sure that you get all of the nutrients. But I think if you just really stick to organic and stuff that is not in a box, and you stay hydrated, and you're getting 7 to 8 hours worth of sleep, you should be in pretty good stead.
So how long did it take you to walk the New York City Marathon?
It takes me, to walk a marathon takes me a little under 7 hours. And it depends on how hilly it is. If it's got a lot of inclines, I slow right down. But if it's flat, then I can speed along pretty quickly.
Well, this was supposed to be the 50th anniversary of the New York City Marathon, but of course, it's not going to be taking place this year. So I hope maybe you'll come back for the 51st anniversary.
Yeah, I did the 40th.
One.
Yeah.
So, Steve, here we go. It's so dangerous out there in the jungle. Can you tell people some of the experiences that you've had out there? I don't think people really understand what it means to be an archaeologist in the middle of Honduras.
Well, I'm not an archaeologist for one, but it doesn't matter.
But you do the same.
With us.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a really interesting feeling to be dropped off or be somewhere where there is no 911. You're surrounded by jungle, and you can walk literally 10 or 15 feet away from your comrades and be disoriented and lost. In fact, we all kept whistles with us. So if we did get lost, we'd blow the whistle and hopefully they could kind of echolocate us and find us. One of the recurring problems was snakes. There's some pretty poisonous snakes out in the jungle. We saw them all the time. We had a couple close encounters, and thankfully, no one had a problem. However, the most dangerous aspect for us was the tiniest, was a little sandfly that you can barely see, but bites you all over the place and carries a horrific parasite, which a large number of our crew are still suffering from 5 years later. It's called leishmaniasis. So when you go in the jungle, it's beautiful. It's great to see the biodiversity, and you realize you are basically in a giant organic recycling plant, and everything is just waiting for their turn to get at you. So you sort of have to get that mindset. You have to watch out what you're doing.
So I guess we're going to go from one dangerous environment to the next. Kevin, the question to you is, do you have any dive site recommendation for observing nudibranchs in the Southern California region? Are you muted? Can you please unmute?
Yes, thank you for saying so. Yes, there's quite a bit of nudibranch biodiversity here in Southern California. La Jolla Shores is a good place down near San Diego. Don't go there expecting to see beautiful reefs and colorful flora and fauna. It's rather drab in average terms. However, it is what we call a muck diving paradise. If you're looking for the small, you'll find plenty of that. I failed to mention that these nudibranchs are normally the size of a grain of sand, up to maybe 2.5 feet. And that big gastropod is right off our coast here in Southern California, Aplysia vaccaria. It's a big, black, ugly looking thing as far as sea slugs go. But the majority of others, as you see behind me, they're really beautiful creatures. Also at Laguna Beach up here in Orange County is a very nice site for sea slugs, as well as Palos Verdes. So nearly everywhere you go in the world, though, you'll find sea slugs. I did see a deep sea rover photograph about 2,000 feet down, which photographed a really beautiful sea slug. So they're out there practically everywhere.
Thank you so much. So we have a question from another member of the club who's been doing work in Turkey. He's an archaeologist by the name of Owen Dunan. And his question is, for many of our panelists with connections to the greater tourism industry, become interested in the problem of how to justify archaeological field research beyond the scientific benefits gained. I work in Turkey, where the government has a great interest in developing new touristic assets. In fact, that is the main jurisdiction for archaeological research in the eyes of the Ministry of Culture. At the same time, I believe we are approaching or have passed the age of mass tourism. So it might be interesting to organize a panel discussion on the design of models for tourism that maintain its benefits, cross-cultural understanding, concern for the environment, local economic development, etc. Do you all have thoughts on this? Who wants to start?
Owen, I hope you can participate in that. We know Owen, and he's a remarkable archaeologist himself at Cal State Northridge. And we'd love to work with you on that.
Maria, I saw you had your hand raised.
Yes, that's a very big topic of conversation right now in the travel industry, especially those that are interested in regenerative travel and transformational travel, is how are we now going out into the world? And the general thought is that we will be going into the world much more mindfully than we have in the past. And we will really be more thoughtful about how and what we are bringing into the communities that we are visiting. So that's a very, very good question, and one that is going to be continued to be talked about as we're moving through this period of COVID and looking at what travel is going to be in the future. And the common thought right now is that people will travel less, but go for longer periods of time, and that they'll do experiences that are immersive and culturally sensitive to where they're traveling through.
Anyone else have? Sure, Steve.
It is a very big subject, as Maria said. And even in our project, one of the first things the government down in Honduras wanted to do is said, oh, we'll build a road out to this lost city, we'll bring out tourism and so on and so forth. And we went, if you build the road, you've lost your jungle, you've lost everything else, you lose control, you can't keep it up. So it is a problem. You have to balance, we have to find a balance between economic benefit, which is important, and also not trampling the environment so we lose the very thing that we're going there to see. And this is the experience that we've had all over the world. In most places, you find something wonderful and beautiful and interesting, and so many people go to see it, pretty soon it's not what you went there to see anymore. It changes. So I don't know if there's anyone really has the answer on how to find that balance other than having less people in the world. And maybe nature has done it by creating this pandemic because now no one's going anywhere. So some of these areas are recuperating. But it's an ongoing issue that'll take a lot of discussion, and I'm not sure what the real answers are because you can argue it many different ways.
Thank you. We've got another question here for Alan. Rosaly, did you want to say something?
Rosaly had something she wanted to say.
Yeah, oops, am I muted? No, I'm sorry, I just have to go. I have an appointment. Didn't think it would take quite so long. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Rosaly.
Thank you, Rosaly. Thanks for joining us. Good seeing you again.
So this one is for Alan. How many cheetahs have been born in captivity since the Namibia Center started? If so, are they released back into the wild and tagged for migratory observation?
We are not allowed to breed cheetahs in Namibia. So the answer is 0. So people want to know, well, isn't the population going to go down? We wish it would, but unfortunately, there isn't a week or a month or a couple of months that goes by that some other cheetah is found. In fact, the last time I was there was a 6-week-old cub done. Most of the breeding is taking place in zoos. I think, for example, the National Zoo in Washington several years ago gave birth to cheetah cubs. But yeah, there's no breeding of cheetahs in Namibia.
May I add also to that, the cheetahs are very unique species in that you could breed a couple of cheetahs together well, let me say it another way. There's not a lot of diversity amongst the genetic background to them. So when zoos do want to breed cheetahs, they have to be very careful that there is a significant difference in their background. And so Dr. Lori Marker actually helps facilitate that. She keeps what's the stud book for cheetahs worldwide. And so she and her team are just right on top of this in terms of helping to facilitate diversity in the cheetah populations in zoos.
Yeah, David, I just wanted to add to that. When we were there last year, one of the things I found out, well, they have the ability to do DNA, run DNA. Their machine is really, I think, kind of antiquated, and they can't really run very large volumes of things. So that was one of the things that they really were in need of was a new and improved machine for running DNA, so they could address that problem that you just mentioned.
Always looking for new and improved things at CCF, though I have to tell you, last time I was there, which was just about a year ago, I was completely blown away by meeting the young woman who runs now the DNA lab there. She is from Namibia, educated in India, came back, finished more of her education in Namibia, and if you ever want to meet somebody that's going to inspire you that things are going to be okay in the future, she is one of those people, dedicated to her work, brilliant, and just very much inspiring to see the kind of work that done. And to sum up what both Tim and David said, yes, not only does Lori have a stud book, but we do collect semen samples from all the male cheetahs, and and are doing DNA analysis of those.
So I know Kevin Murphy has put up the website for the Cheetah Conservation Fund, and for those of you who are interested, it was just the 30th anniversary of Lori Marker's Cheetah Conservation Fund. It will be on the website. I encourage you to take a look at the video because she is just such a remarkable person, and I think you'll get a lot out of it.
And also people should know that Ann also sits on the board of trustees of the Cheetah Conservation Fund too, and has done some great work.
Well, I think we're all trying to do our best to protect the cheetah and to keep it going. I mean, there are only a little over 7,000 cheetahs in the wild now. So it's just an incredibly low number, and we'd like to see them stay safe and to increase their population. So I see that Danielle is a little bit quiet there, so we'd like to bring you out of it. You've been on 2 ships now, right? You've been on a ship that went around Africa, that was a Phoenician voyaging vessel, and an Indonesian voyaging vessel. What's next for you?
Actually, I've been on several. Those were just a couple little tasters of different ones. I didn't want to go over my time limit. But yeah, so all of my work, and I should have mentioned this before, is in order to bring light to some of the things that are going on with the climate and our oceans. So next for me, I am going to be concentrating on bodies of water that are maybe the most polluted bodies of water on the planet. It's not very sexy, but somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, Danielle, I wanted to ask you a question. I'm a photographer myself, and when you're on these trips, the scenery is constantly changing. So are you doing most of your paintings just from memory, or are you using photography as a tool to help enhance that? And if you could just address that.
Yeah, whenever I'm on an expedition, I always take 3 sketchbooks. So I take one that's sort of A4, and then I take one that's sort of this big, and then I take one that's A4, and then I take a pocket-sized one. And I'll do sketches wherever I go, or if it's at nighttime, or if the seas are too rough and I have to be indoors. If the boat has electricity, I will make sketches in that, and I sketch in oils. I also do take a lot of photographs. Sometimes you're so busy being a crew member that you don't notice things that are really quite remarkable. For example, I was going through some photographs of my last expedition to Antarctica, and I was looking at, the perfect ice. Like, what is the perfect ice that I could paint? How can I abstract this? How can I talk about it with my own voice? And I'm going through my photographs, and right in the middle of this photograph was a big display from a whale. And I didn't even see it when I was there at the time, because there's so much going on, as you all know. So yeah, I use mainly sketches, but also photography for reference. Thanks.
Another question for Kevin, and that is, your name is now part of the oceans. How do you think we should approach the plastic pollution problem?
Yeah, you need to unmute, Kevin.
Thanks again for the reminder. I'm sorry I didn't catch the beginning of that question. Could you repeat it quickly?
Sure. Jenny's asking, Kevin, your name is now part of the oceans. How do you think we should approach the plastic pollution problem?
Oh, yes, that's a very serious one. I've seen quite a bit of evidence of pollution, sometimes animals entrapped in fish netting, this sort of thing. Sea turtles expire because they ingest plastics. As most of you probably know, there's a huge gyre of plastics rotating around the middle of the Pacific. It goes hand in hand with the bigger problem of, that we have such a heavy human population problem in the world, and not everyone deals with the waste that we produce. Millions and billions of tons of waste every year. So yes, it's incumbent on us to be stewards of our earth. I mean, the earth has a shelf life, of course, but doesn't mean that we should just rape and plunder all our resources. We should conserve and preserve the beauty of nature, and that includes the ocean, because that's where we get most of our oxygen. A lot of people's livelihood depends on the ocean. So yes, everywhere possible that I speak to, in groups and whatnot, I do bring that issue up, and I thank the questioner for bringing that up as well.
So I think that concludes all of our questions for the evening. I wanted to let everybody know that we had people watching from South Africa, Australia, Burkina Faso, and so many different states in our country. Unfortunately, next week, we're not going to be having a Chapter Connect, but I hope that you'll all be watching the presidential debate and tuning in for that. This has just been an incredible group of people that we have here. I wanted to let Maria one more time quote Bertrand at the very end, because I think that was just so perfect to bring us all together and to take us out. Before we do that, I just wanted to say thank you to Dave and Steve and Kevin and Danielle, Rosaly, of course, Alan and Tim. Would you like to add something else before we go? I know that the next one, not next week, but the week after, I think will be straight up the coast from you, and that will be Pacific Northwest. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I have nothing really to add. I just want to thank everybody for all your presentations. I really particularly enjoyed this one, especially you're kind of our sister chapter. I don't know if most people know this, but San Diego was an offshoot from Southern California. We used to be a part of your great chapter, and we just grew to a point where we were big enough to form our own. And a lot of people have come down for our parties from Southern California, and I really appreciate that. I feel like we have a real kinship.
And Dave, do you want to add something?
Thank everybody. As much as we love to get together in person, but we will. And maybe Steve, you can employ us to help fix up your next door property and put us to work, and we could have a picnic afterwards.
Well, I had a party for the Explorers Club once a couple of years ago at my house, and I'm looking forward to do it again. And now I have more land. We can have an even bigger party, but as soon as the pandemic is over, it'd be my pleasure to do that. But I want to thank you and Ann and Tim for organizing this. It's a lot of work, and you're the unsung heroes to try and keep everybody connected. Appreciate it.
And we want to follow up with you and your backyard. I mean, we want to see what it looks like when you're all done.
Well, it's going to look kind of wild, actually. It's got a lot of trees, and it's got a stream. A fair amount of wildlife lives in there. I have little camera traps, and I see what comes in there at night, and that's the way I want to keep it. I want to keep it a little oasis into my concrete, surrounded by concrete here.
Sounds great. I think we're all going to be going over to your house at some point soon.
Oh, and Monday, is there anything on for Monday?
There is on Monday. Monday, we're going to be joining Sterler Ellenbrog and also Annalise Sklar, who's going to be talking about the Nansen passport for all of those people that have no country these days and they're migrating from one place to the next. This is something that goes back into time. He was an Explorers Club member back in the early 1900s, a Norwegian, a Nobel laureate, and we're going to be exploring his past and also going over a book that Annalie put together. It's quite amazing, and I think you'll find it very interesting. So please join us on Monday at 7 p.m. And Maria, go right ahead. You're muted.
Yeah.
Take us out, Maria.
Okay. When we can explore isolation on our own device, on purpose, it's an adventure.
So we wish you a wonderful adventure till we get together next time, and stay well, stay healthy, and great to see you all. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.